one, and there we are. We are live. There you are, Russ. I'm gonna go to the watch page. Hey, you doing? I'm gonna go to the watch page real quick. Go to the live stream to see how the stream is taking in, which is something we have to do with YouTube Live Mobile. There it is. Oakland Raiders, Las Vegas NFL Stadium watch page. News talk with Russ Rivera, and the stream status is good. That's exactly what I want to see. We go to view in watch page, and there is the watch page, and thankfully it's on mute, pre-mute. Let me make sure that the other settings are copacetic here, and including monetization. Yes, it is. Go back to watch page. We already have I think that's Rick, Barry Lee and Rick, and hello, writing hello all. Hello. Okay. And Sam saying say hi to Russ. Hi.
Hey everybody.
Hey to Russ. And now I'm going back to you. And there you are on the left, and everybody else is on the right. And we're going. Hey folks, it's my pleasure to introduce my friend Russ Rivera of We Stand with Oakland, and the fundraising arm for this entire effort, along with the Oakland Raiders Fan Coalition, with Forever Oakland and Save Oakland Sports and everybody else, right? All one big happy family. Russ, how you doing, my man? Welcome to the Zinderdome.
Two men enter, one man will leave.
Exactly.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you having me.
That's hilarious. I have to keep that one. Where movie did that come from? 2 men enter, one man leave. What was?
Oh crap.
Oh, I can still hear you. I can still hear you.
Hang on one sec.
Okay. All right.
Sorry,
All right. We lost
I got
Russ.
a text message.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
Okay. I generally ignore the text messages. So,
Yeah, it stopped the screen. So.
Oh, I see.
All right.
Okay,
Can
yeah.
you hear me now?
I can hear you loud.
So
I can always hear you loud and clear.
All right.
Hey, so what movie did it come from? 2 men enter, 1 man leave.
That's from Thunderdome.
That's right.
Yeah. That was Master Blaster and the whole thing. You know, when they go and fight, 2 men enter, 1 man leave.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, we're not fighting, we're talking. But hey, everybody says hello.
No, of course.
Jacob P says hello. Karen says
I thought I'd just start about with, what I want to do is I want to kind of relate to the people that are watching and the fans that are listening. And so I thought I'd start with just a little bit about how I got into this and where I got to in my position with this whole movement. So I'm just like everybody here watching. I'm a regular fan. I guess you might say I'm a super fan without the face paint, but
I like that.
I started because I've been following the whole relocation saga since Carson, or even before Carson. So, and the Raiders mean a lot to me. They're literally in my family. So, after the vote happened on March 27th, I'd been sitting and thinking, okay, up till now we've trusted the city, we trusted the county, the municipalities, we trusted the NFL, we trusted the Raiders to all do the right thing and get a deal done, and it didn't happen. So at that point, I thought, if there's something that I can do, if there's some way I can contribute, and there's some way that I can help make this happen to keep the Raiders in Oakland, I wouldn't be able to sleep at night, and I certainly wouldn't want to get later in life or even post relocation when they've already taken off to Vegas and said, I wish I would have done something. I wish I would have said something. I wish I would have participated in some way to help them stay in Oakland. So up till that point, I'd been following you. I had been following Dr. Death, our good friend Ray Perez.
Yep.
And by that time, Ray and I had established a pretty good talking relationship.
Mm-hmm.
We talked quite a bit on the phone about information. He was following it obviously very closely. I was following it very closely. We both, were watching your shows, and we would just exchange information and talk about philosophy and theory and different ideas we had on this whole thing. After the vote, literally after the vote, I called up Ray and I said, okay, who's doing what? Because I need to know if somebody's doing something, if somebody's going to take some action here, if somebody is going to, take a fight to the NFL, or or to the Raiders, or at least try to make this difficult, I need to be in that. I need to be involved, and I feel like I can have some kind of influence or, at least something to contribute here. So, at that point, he said, well, I think there's this guy, Ray Bobbitt, is doing something. And I said, okay, give me his phone number. I gotta reach out to him. So he sent me his phone number, and I called up Ray, and I said, hey, Ray, Ray Bobbitt, I heard that you are putting together something, and if you are, I want to be a part of it. I want to contribute any way I can, and whatever you need, I'm 100% behind you. So he said, okay, I'm in beginning stages. Let me see what I can, what we're putting together here, and then I'll get back to you. So about a week later, I heard back from him, and he said, okay, it looks like this thing is starting to move and starting to gain some legs. So, let's start putting this coalition together. And that's when he and I started spending literally some days, hours on the phone, talking about how we were going to structure this thing, what our goals are, what we want the result to be, multiple different contingency plans in terms of, okay, if this happens, then what? If that happens, then what? Who's going to be involved? How we could possibly start to make this work. And we started to put together the coalition. So the coalition is a group of fan groups, community leaders, and business owners, local, mostly to the Oakland area, but a lot of East Bay and even some South Bay and Peninsula folks. And we decided, very early on that in order to make this work, we're going to need, public help, and ultimately we want we want public opinion to help influence this. So we said, if we're going to solicit help from the public and even money from the public, we're going to need a nonprofit and a 501c3 to help people feel comfortable with donating, with putting that together. So we researched several 501c3s in the area, found one that had a similar mission statement to ours, and then contacted the president of that nonprofit to ask if they were willing to be our fiscal agent through this process. So, of course, they were all in support. At that point, I became an officer within the nonprofit so that we could facilitate our goals. And then the business entity was born. So we filed all the paperwork with the county, opened up the proper accounts to make sure everything was transparent and very accountable. Because that's one thing we want to make sure through this whole process. And I want to make sure everybody understands this. We're extremely transparent. We did hire a third-party CPA firm to help us manage for tax reasons and for ultimately transparency reasons, so that people know that if they're donating money to this cause, if they're ultimately giving of their resources, that it's going towards a legitimate cause, and that we're in no way assuming this money, doing whatever we want with it. It's purely for this movement. So we've managed to gain the support through this time through many fan groups, including the Black Hole, including the 66 Mob in Forever Oakland, including Save Oakland Sports, the Oakland Raider Booster Club, and a few others that I'm just not thinking of, but a lot of those guys you've probably heard of. Mm-hmm. And we started having meetings, and we decided at that time that, how we're going to move forward, how we're going to make this happen. As we were starting to get this ball rolling, Ray Bobbitt personally reached out to several law professors, one from Stanford, one from Cal, one from Penn. And we brought our case to them. At that time, the legal complaint from St. Louis was just coming out. And we showed the St. Louis legal complaint and ultimately where we stand with us in our issue. Mm-hmm. And they said, absolutely, you guys have a really strong, complaint here, a really strong, issue. And we feel, that this could gain some legs. So at that point, we contacted Jim Quinn and his staff. We had a few conference calls with him. Again, shared all the evidence and different things that we have to show where we're coming from and our point of view. And he also agreed. So, and I say all this to say that I'm just a regular guy. I'm a small business owner. I own a couple of small businesses. I live in San Jose, spend a lot of time in Oakland. And I will say my game day experience in Oakland is always the best day of my life. There's just really no better day to me than when I'm out there amongst, my Raider family and really just having the day of a lifetime every week. So I say this because there's a lot of fans out there who don't know what to do, who don't know how to help.
Right.
And I was in your boat at that point too. I want people to know that your contributions are appreciated.
Thank you.
And ultimately, anything you bring, we're happy to facilitate. We've got open minds, open ears, open eyes. And we want you involved. We want the community involved. We want the public involved. And if anybody wants to participate, we will not say no to you. If anybody wants to contribute, we will not say no to you. So just reach out to any of us, myself, Grizz Jones of the 66 Mob, Dr. Death, Ray Perez. Reach out to any of us, and we'll find some function, some way you can contribute and help us achieve our goal.
Hey, Russ, where are we right now from your estimation in terms of
So right now we're in that, what everybody's been calling that exploratory phase, right? So we're in that period right now where the attorneys we retained are doing their research and putting together any possible strategy that we may use to go forward. We're also in that phase where the politicians, the municipalities, are deciding how they want to move forward, whether they want to come on as plaintiffs, and that consists of all three entities being the city, the county, and the JPA. So as a lot of you know who follow us, we had a meeting with the JPA a couple of Fridays ago, where they voted to add our petition to their agenda, essentially to review all the evidence we've brought together, the evidence and the information our attorneys have put together, and ultimately decide if they want to be added to any type of legal complaint from a municipality point of view. So we're currently working with the members of the JPA to ultimately satisfy their questions and their concerns about this process, to make sure that they fully understand what's happening. They fully understand the information that we have, that we feel very strongly about, and ultimately, help them decide that this is good for not only their constituents, but good for them as well.
Can you clear up something that has been a bugaboo in terms of messaging for a while now? And I think when I say you'll know what I'm talking about, and that Channel 5, KPIX, really started this, where they reported the strategy, what they thought the strategy was, when there is no revealed strategy, and they pointed to Cleveland without any resuscitation of a true source from the group or anybody connected with the group. And this became the narrative that it's going to be going after the name and the logo. Can you tell everybody exactly where all this is right now?
Well, without giving up strategy or, anything, our goal is to preserve Oakland Raiders football in Oakland. Whether that's the organization as it stands now with Mark Davis and his football operations, that would be the ideal. That would be the easiest outcome for all of us, because there would be, they're already there. They already have the facility. They already have the operation. They already have everything. All we have to do is just help facilitate a stadium build and ultimately help all sides win. Where that comes from is just the fact that we openly state we are open to all scenarios. It's not just, okay, this is one goal A, and that's the only goal we're going to go after. Ultimately, we understand that this could play out in a multitude of different ways, including and not limited to retaining the colors and the brand and all that stuff if that were to work out that way. I'm sure, KPIX and multiple other media outlets came up with that only just because the feel of our case is very similar to that of the Browns. Mm-hmm. You have an owner who wants to leave. You've got mad support from the community around it that really wants to support the football team. And as we know, Ohio as a state is, only second to Texas, in my opinion, when it comes to their love of football.
Yeah.
And they love their Browns. I mean, the Browns have been a bad team for a very long time, but yet those people still go to those games.
Yep.
And they still support that team as if it was, every year was, Super Bowl type of year.
Yep.
And that's very similar to the Raiders, and where the Raiders have been the last 14 years is, the Raider Nation has showed up to support, a lot of bad years of football. And we go out there every Sunday as if it was, again, a Super Bowl Sunday, and we yell and we scream and we support. We spend our hard-earned money and our time and our effort to support this team, and this team wants to leave regardless. So I think that's probably where they draw some of that comparison. But we are open to all strategy, all outcomes when it comes to keeping Oakland Raiders, specifically Oakland Raiders football in Oakland.
Hey, let's do something because. First of all, anybody have any questions for Russ? I know Jacob P. got his question answered. Now LX9933 says, asks, so there's a possibility they'll take the name and colors? That's a question to you.
I mean, at this point, everything's a possibility. There's really nothing, all we're doing is exploring all of the outcomes, all of the possible outcomes. So when we talk about an exploratory phase, we're talking about looking at every scenario, literally every scenario, and making sure that we vet out every possibility so that not only do we understand how things might go, but we are well planned in that when that outcome comes, one way or the other, we have a means to handle that outcome. If we are awarded in some way, somehow, colors or a team or an expansion franchise called the Raiders or whatever the outcome is going to be, that we're well facilitated, well planned. Unlike other entities out there, we want to plan out our eventual outcome, not just leave it up to happenstance and let things fall where they may. We want to make sure that when we get to point B, there's a plan. When we get to point C, there's a plan. So we've been working on, we don't work on what ifs or wishes or hopes or any of that stuff. We work on, okay, if this contingency happens, this is what we're going to do. If that contingency happens, this is what we're going to do. I give a lot of credit to Ray Bobbitt. Yep. He's really engineered a lot of this.
Yep.
He is extremely intelligent and extremely well-spoken.
Yep.
And extremely professional.
Yep.
And he's really been a
wait. We don't want to give him too big a head.
Well, he's a big guy. He's already got a big head. That's just like me. But he's a fantastic partner. When it comes to business and strategy and technique. Amazingly patient. I mean, you can imagine, what we've had to go through to this point in terms of dealing with politicians, dealing with public, dealing with other, entities and different people that are involved, different personalities, different techniques. He's got the patience of a saint, and I really give a lot of credit to Ray. There's been a lot of people that have had their hands in this, and so I don't want to diminish, other roles in this process. But I really have to give a lot of credit to Ray. He's been an orchestrator of a lot of this, and it's his reputation and his, community leadership that has really carried a lot of weight for this process.
Hey, Ray Perez is on. He has a question. First, Barry Lee asks, well, I'll get to that. That's out of sequence in terms of what we're talking about. Ray Perez asks, what are the next steps?
So next steps, as Grizz mentioned the other night on your show, is the JPA meeting. That's the big next step. That's probably going to be the big news breaking day where the JPA will ultimately decide their involvement with this process. In that time, in between that time, now we're working with the municipalities to ensure our outcome, to make sure that our goals are achieved, and ultimately that they feel secure in moving forward. both, politically, financially, and, any other constraint that they may, have with regards to participation. So right now we're working, just to make sure that we're solid in that capacity. But ultimately we'll know, in just a couple of weeks here, how at least the JPA feels and where they stand with this whole process. I'm very positive, based on, you never know how a vote's going to turn out. Obviously, we all thought that the relocation vote was going to go one way and it went, completely the opposite. So you never know. But I feel very positive, and I work I believe in the law of attraction, and I just like to be a positive person, and I really believe that the powers that be not only believe in what we're doing, but I also believe that they now feel empowered because the community stands behind them, as opposed to them just standing alone and trying to represent a community without any real ground level input. So now that they've seen that not only that there's a coalition of people in the community that are fighting and fighting hard, that we're raising money, that we're enlisting businesses, anywhere from your small mom and pop shops all the way up to huge sports organizations like the Oakland A's. Mm-hmm. It's really taken on a whole new level of community, public-private partnership that is unprecedented. And of course, it's got to happen in Oakland, where Oakland sets the trend for just about everybody else. We had the first female executive in Amy Trask. We had the first African-American coach in head coach in Art Shell. And of course, we had the innovator and I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but Al Davis, who just, was unprecedented in creating the game that we love and know today. So, of course, the community, of course, the politicians, of course, the Raiders, of course, the precedent and the dynamic of what we're doing is brand new. And of course, we're the land of no. We fight back. This is, I don't live in Oakland now, but my father was an Alameda County sheriff. My godfather was the chief of Oakland Police. I spent a lot of time in Oakland, and I love that city. And I was born a Raider fan, and I've been a Raider fan for over 40 years. And I bleed silver and black. And man, the day of the relocation vote was probably one of the worst days of my life, and it hit me hard. And I subscribed to everything NFL, whether it's the Red Zone or the Sunday Ticket, or Sirius XM NFL Radio, or just all this, anything you could pay for that was for NFL Now, everything. I bought it and I paid for it. And on March 27th and March 28th, I canceled everything.
Wow. Hey, quick question. I want to get back to you on the cancellation part. Barry Lee asks, what are the time frame for the discovery process on how to proceed? And then Ray Perez asks, who can we contact to help out?
So, timeline, it's hard to say. It's really, again, we're in that exploratory phase. It's hard to nail down what that timeline is going to be. I imagine in the next 30 to 90 days, we're going to know pretty solidly where we stand, and how we're going to go about this. But we don't want to rush it. We want to make sure, again, that we're well planned and well thought out. And we want to make sure that if we're going to take on something of this magnitude, essentially a small community fighting 31 billionaires and 1 millionaire, mm-hmm. that we are well versed, well prepared, and well planned in what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. That's why we hired and retained Jim Quinn and Eric Hockstedt. We wanted to make sure that we were represented by the best guys who know who we're going up against, who have personal relationships with these guys. They know the Jerry Joneses, they know the Robert Krafts, they know the Roger Goodells. They literally, physically, and personally know these guys. They deal with them on a regular basis. So it's been extremely insightful talking with them, learning more about NFL politics, and how that all works. And then as far as contacting, So we have obviously a couple of ways you can reach us. We're on social media. Facebook is We Stand with Oak. We had to cut off the land because it wouldn't allow us to use, it was too long. So it's We Stand with Oak on Facebook. I'm sure you can search it and it'll come up quickly. We're also on Twitter. You can search my name at Russell Rivera, 2 S's, 2 L's, Russell Rivera. Or you can search the hashtag We Stand with Oakland, and I should come up all over the place. Then, of course, I have a Gmail account. Thank you. A Gmail account, which is Keep the Oakland Raiders at Gmail. And then, of course, there's a handful of other guys that are equally available. So, Grizz Jones at 66 Mob is readily available. Ray Perez, Dr. Death, is readily available.
Who's here?
And we're all guys that are deeply involved and really in the know about how we're doing things. But ultimately, we're all working together to plan our campaigns, both legally and public relations-wise, in order to not only educate and create public awareness, but to also raise funds and ultimately let people know that their contribution is not only history-making, but it's truly making a difference. I mean, even the folks that have contributed $5, you know what? Enough of those guys to contribute $5, that adds up very quickly.
Yep.
So every dollar helps. And for those who laugh at us and think that we're a bunch of misfits or a joke or a scam and then just taking people's money, this is 100% legitimate. It's through a nonprofit, completely legal, completely legitimate, recorded with the county and the state. We are a 501c3. We have a CPA, a third-party CPA, monitoring all the funds. Letters will be given to every donor in regards to where, what they've donated, so they can use that for their taxes. Please, if you're concerned, vet us out. Google us, look us up, talk to other people about us. We're 100% legitimate. I work in the financial services industry. I'm a licensed professional. I deal with people's money, millions of dollars on a daily basis. I'm not in the business of stealing from people. And if anything, I'm not only ethically bound, but professionally bound to make sure that I am 100% honest when it comes to other people's resources.
Hey, so the other question that we had was that, I believe it was me, we scrolled down, I believe it was Barry Lee or someone. I'll just ask what I thought I saw and just deal with the outcome from that. But the other question was, Mark Davis, have you had contact with Mark Davis? That was the first question. The second question was, have you had contact with Ronnie Lott and or Fortress? Yeah.
So no contact from Mark or the NFL. That I think is good for both sides. I don't know. Ray Bobbitt, of course, is my counterpart, and he is the political mastermind, ultra patient, strategist, whatever that word would be, when putting this together. I'm kind of more the financial guy behind the scenes, trying to help put the money together, trying to manage all of the resources and tools that we're using. So if I had heard from Mark Davis, I don't know that I would keep it cool. I would probably be a little bit emotional and probably express to him what he's doing to not only me personally, but my friends and family who are directly involved with this process and who are affected by this process. And then, of course, the rest of my family that I call the Raider Nation that, are pro-Oakland and really, take their families. Great guys like Rob Rivera from the Black Hole, who takes his daughters to Raider games every week, and they're young girls who just live and die and bleed silver and black. It's we live by the Raiders, and I know that sounds ridiculous to some, but it really goes beyond football. It's a way that we connect with people personally, that we don't get to see very often. There's some people, in fact, friends of mine that I only see on Sundays on game day, eight times a year, maybe 10 times a year if I'm lucky. That's the only time I get to see them. So, and I know there's a lot of people out there just like me. So you know, if I had contact from Mark Davis, I would probably try to pull on the heartstrings a little bit, but no, there's been no contact there. With regard to Ronnie Lott and Fortress Investment Group, there has been conversations there. We have been in contact there. It's been very, you know, eye-opening and interesting to learn from their perspective how things have played out, and also to learn, you know, that they stand behind us. I mean, ultimately, they are waiting, you know, to see how things play out, but they have to play this smartly themselves because, you know, coming out in the press, just like, let's look at it this way. When Mark Davis lost his Carson bid, and ultimately, you know, he thought he was going to get the votes, and the votes went the other way, and he lost, and they went with, you know, the Chargers and the Rams. Ultimately, he could have blown up after it. You know, the media was all over him and said, "Oh, the NFL screwed us, and we should have had the votes, and you know, we put all this effort in, and they really screwed us." But he didn't. He was patient. He was quiet, and then, and it was widely reported that the reason he got the votes for Vegas is because of that loyalty and good judgment on his behalf for not saying anything, not speaking out against the league, not taking some kind of stance publicly.
I gotta say one thing.
So, from my point of view, Ronnie Lott is playing that exact same game.
I gotta say one thing.
I merit him for it.
I gotta say one thing though, because I was sitting not but about 22 feet from Mark when he was talking, and I wasn't paying attention to Mr. Davis talking. I was actually paying attention to Roger Goodell's expression, and he was mad because he actually expected Mark Davis to say, well, we're going to stay in Oakland. Instead, he said, we're going to find a home for Raider Nation. But he did not say anything about Oakland. And I know Roger. I've known Roger since '97. And I know that look. And Roger was pissed. So, yeah, Mark, you say, from your point of view, he was like holding his temper. For me, I thought he was about this close to losing it. I thought, and I was like, yeah, man. I was like, do it. Well, I was like, do it. In my back of my mind, right? I'm like, yeah. Okay. Just
I mean, you know, just from our point of view, right? It would have been easy for him to say, you know, come out in the public and say they screwed us or whatever. We were supposed to get that deal and we didn't. But he kept his cool. He stayed ultimately, you know, relatively quiet about the whole thing, and he got his reward.
And then he left the stage. And then he left the stage. And he left the stage after 42 seconds.
He's a Hall of Famer. He's a former player. He's you know, a great guy in the community. He's helped a lot of people with jobs and education. I mean, he is well loved in the Bay Area. Well loved, and not just for being a Niner, but for being active in the community and really helping people from a huge point of view. So, I mean, the guy just met the Pope for everything. So, you know, not many people, you know, get to go and shake hands and hang out with the Pope for a day. So that says a lot about Ronnie Lott.
That's true.
So the guy's got a ton of character. He's got a ton of charisma. And I believe in what he's doing is politically sound and professionally sound, because ultimately, if he wants to be an owner someday or otherwise somehow active in this league from an executive point of view, he's got to play nice and he's got to play politically correctly with the NFL. And if that means, you know, playing sitting on the fence a little bit and putting out a message that is a little ambiguous, that is not anti-Oakland, but not anti-NFL either, that's the way I see it.
All right. Barry Lee has a question.
I think he's being a very intelligent person when it comes to that, because he's got to make sure that he keeps these guys in good graces. So one thing I am confident about, though, is Ronnie, Fortress, they're still committed to this process. If and when Las Vegas falls apart on its own, they'll be waiting in the wings, ready to have their proposal, reviewed by the Raiders and by the league again. If and somehow we have a hand in helping that facilitate that, then hey, even better. But I can't say enough good things about Ronnie Lott. I know a week or two ago, his comments on Sirius Satellite Radio came out and really, shook a lot of people. And even myself at first, I was like, why would he say something like that? but we had a conversation with Ronnie Lott, and after speaking with him, it was very clear to us exactly what he was trying to do. So we're very confident in Ronnie Lott and Fortress Investment Group.
Barry Lee has a question. He asks, have they, meaning the coalition, planned to contact or contacted the national media like ESPN to bring the fight worldwide?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we hired a local PR firm, Varner Media, here locally, to reach out initially for our initial press conference and make sure that we had local coverage. And as we, as needed, as we start to make the news in terms of national news, which I think is coming very soon, we're going to be taking on a national PR firm to make sure that this reaches a broader base of media people. We did, the day during that press conference, utilize not only our PR contact, but everybody involved in terms of social media, reach out to every media contact we had, including ESPN contacts, including NFL Network contacts, including everybody that you would think of to think about. Bleacher Report, Lock and Fora, all the guys that you would think about when talking about anything NFL related and breaking news regarding, Oakland Raiders. So that was definitely utilized. It was heard. We received a lot of messages back from said people and their interest in the story. We continue to get contacted from different people, asking questions along the way, wanting to find out what's happening next. And ultimately, they're trying to create a story for us and a narrative for us. But ultimately, we live in the land of social media now. I mean, as you know, being a vlogger, anybody can report this.
Excuse me.
And anybody can get it out there.
I own 96.
And you're good at it.
I own 96 blogs.
I've seen a lot of them.
and 200 Twitter accounts. Keep that in mind.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So maybe don't make sure not to troll you then.
Oh, hey, it's all right. I'll troll you back. You just may not know it's me. Hey, me aside, coming back to the question that everyone has asked, but I was holding that off to make the questions relevant to what you were talking about. Did you see the Las Vegas Stadium Authority meeting today? What did you think of it?
I watched part of it. I probably watched a good 20 or 30 minutes of it. I did watch the last few minutes of the public comments, and then the first few minutes of the, I would say, the professional commentary. So I did see a few people speak on their opinions of what the relocation will and won't do to their area. And, there were a couple of things that I personally enjoyed. One point, there was a man who stood up who basically, he's a retired gentleman now, but claims that he worked in the sports arena / stadium industry as a consultant and economist for over 30 years. And that ultimately he'd been working with Roger Knoll, who we all know is a famed sports economist.
You're talking about James Naguri. James Naguri is his name.
Exactly. James Naguri. Thank you.
You're welcome.
He
trolled the SNTIC last year.
I'm sorry?
He trolled the SNTIC last year. Yes.
That's awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I thought he had some excellent points. Some of the statistics and numbers that he came out with, the metrics that he came out with were very informative in regards to the parking issue and some of the glorified numbers that the Raiders have provided regarding people visiting, how many rooms will be taken, how many parking spots will be available, and ultimately how that will work out. And ultimately, he said at the very end, I believe everything the Raiders have provided you with regard to this in the reports are bogus and completely, non-usable. So I thought that was excellent. That was a little rain on a nice day was really nice. Another local businessman came out and kind of said, hey, look, we've seen what happens when you shut down traffic for local business on the north side of the city.
Yep.
With the stadium they have up there. imagine how that's going to be on the south side and how many businesses that's going to affect on the south side of the strip. And ultimately, he was against it as a small business owner in that area. And so I thought that was really eye-opening from a local community point of view that, yes, the traffic, yes, the overwhelming numbers of people coming to that area just for that game is really going to, create a lot of gridlock and a lot of challenges for, transportation. And then I got to thinking, okay, about those shuttle buses and people having to go back and forth between the site and UNLV. If there's already problems on the strip, if there's already roads shut down and everything else for the game, how the heck are those shuttles going to get in and out and with any kind of an expediency? Because if you're talking about, 87 shuttles going 440 times back and forth, I mean, it's ridiculous. The numbers are ridiculous. So I thought that was really eye-opening. And then some of the infrastructure talks in regards to, Chris, and I always get her name wrong, Chris G is what I call her.
I'll help you out. Her pronunciation of her name is Gin Giuliani. Italian. Gin Giuliani.
She came out and said that she wanted, the Raiders to cover, street repair and more of the infrastructure costs in that way, or cover it all, really. And so there was some really interesting pieces there. And then, as you mentioned, and I'm sure you can probably expound on this a little bit, and I'll pause to let you do that, is, some of the private versus public operations that are happening during, for this whole project, that rather than having a public entity managing certain aspects of this project, that they have a private firm handling that.
Well,
which
and I'm glad I'm going to take you right there. It's more to the point of not so much, and I appreciate that. It's not so much that it's a private firm, but it's an economic consulting firm that has no experience at this. Okay.
Exactly.
It'll be different if it was a private organization, like Las Vegas Sands has a staff or Majestic has a staff, right? But the normal course of action in stadium development is for the city to have a city manager or economic development head doing what applied analytics Jeremy Arguello is doing with respect to Las Vegas Stadium Authority, and they're racking up something like over maybe $100,000, approaching $200,000 in unpaid working hours that they've logged to date, okay? And so because of the way that they're engineering this, there's a lot of learning on the fly, a lot of mistakes being made, and with respect to the community benefits part, which was dialed in by the senator of Nevada, the chair, the head of the Senate, the 15% requirement. They did it, but they had no government oversight component. Now in Oakland, that would never happen. Why? We have an EEOC office. We have a bureaucratic component to actually carry out the process of looking at what a private organization does with respect to the hiring of what's now called the community, which is not just everybody, women, blacks, minority, Latino, Asian, everybody who's qualified to do the job but consistently gets overlooked, okay? And the reason why that's important, and really this gives a window into why government never shrinks. It's because we have departments for every constituency, all right? And the problem with Las Vegas, and I'm telling you, Russ, I'm telling you, everybody that's going to listen, anybody that tells you they're going to shrink the size of government is a fool. As long as we have consistently increasing populations and consistently desired objectives to build somewhere, there will always be a constituency that demands a bureaucracy to watch out for that. Right now, what you have is a constituency that demanded a bureaucracy that was privately built in. It's the fox guarding the hen house. And so what you get is what we had, okay? And what you get is what we had today at the Stadium Authority meeting, where you've got this guy that goes out to West Las Vegas and produces this flyer saying, hey, folks, hey, black folks, I'm black, you're going to get a job. Come on down and sign up. And so you had what was reported to be something like almost 1,000 people outside. I haven't seen a picture of it. Almost getting into fights, being understandably really upset. But the only reason that happens is because there's no government place. So there's no place to go to that's a point person, that is a consistently acknowledged point person within the community. And so now you've got this chaos, and I'm telling you, it's going to happen again, because they have that one person with a contractor and nobody else, and she's going to get more crap than she's in for with that community, the way it's responded. And what made it even worse is that for the first time, Chairman Stephen Hill of the Las Vegas Stadium Authority, with respect to the UNLV Raider negotiations, elected to punt and say, well, that's there. In fact, he did that twice. That's theirs. We're not going to get in the middle of that. It's the Stadium Authority. They're supposed to be monitoring this stuff. So you have Bill Hornbuckle, right? So you've got Bill Hornbuckle, who's the president of MGM, saying, well, I've been through this before, twice in the same meeting. And when Hornbuckle says that, who is a seasoned casino development expert, you've got a problem. Bill Hornbuckle has a way of saying a lot by saying a little. That's the one thing I figured out in my observations of Mr. Hornbuckle over the past year. This was the worst meeting, and it was embarrassing for the NFL. The NFL ought to be personally embarrassed of this happening on the NFL's watch. It's horrible. It's disastrous.
I don't know how it's even gotten this far, and I'm really amazed that the NFL doesn't care more about their brand, to know that, it's just being dragged through the dirt. This whole process, it's ridiculous. I would think that they would care more about their brand and what the public thinks, because, their ratings were already declining. Their TV sponsorship is on its way down. A lot of the big sponsors are starting to back out for cheaper methods. You would think that the NFL would be more protective over that shield. They talk about being protective and making sure that nobody commits anything detrimental to the shield, and yet they shoot themselves in the foot with every step of the way. I'm amazed, and for them to even allow the Oakland Raiders to relocate. People have said this before, and I'm sure you said it as well. There's a few brands in this league that you just don't mess with,
right.
And in my opinion, the Oakland Raiders is one of them. And yeah, they relocated to LA for a little while. I see that as a little trial that failed, and Al Davis readily admitted that. I just don't see how honestly, if I thought Las Vegas was a good deal, I'd get behind it. I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. We're going to do better. We're going to have a new stadium. The team's going to make a ton of money. Everybody's going to win. The citizens of Las Vegas are going to win. The state of Nevada is going to win. Everybody wins. Great, let's do it. But I don't see anybody winning.
Well, not only that,
I see it as an epic failure.
Oh, to me, it was a failure when they passed the vote, and that's why I pointed my camera at myself and started chuckling. And that was March 27th. I said I was going to do that because...
How does that chuckle go again?
Just like that. I'm having a blast watching this, man. And Russ, I have to explain. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I've always wanted, and you and I talked off this camera, about what I went through. But my desire, my dream has been to see the city of Oakland look good and do something and show the will and the initiative to complete big projects, okay? But you have to have the infrastructure to do that. Oakland, also the bureaucracy when I say infrastructure. Oakland has that. Las Vegas does not. So Las Vegas can dream big, but to do big well is an entirely other story. And that's what I've been trying to explain. Excuse me. Let me phrase that. I'm not trying to explain it. I'm just saying it. I don't care who agrees with me or not, because the results are going to play out. It's just like I told someone off camera. I said, you and I can go maybe on my birthday to Las Vegas and have a groundbreaking in front of there and just, a couple of shovels. It's that easy. All right? Groundbreaking. Are they actually ever going to be able to do this? I don't know how many groundbreakings I've been to where the edifice was never built. Okay? Big deal. All right? Big deal. This thing is horrible. It's horrible. And I am having a child's field day watching all of these mistakes. I told someone at the NFL I won't name who asked me why I was trying to find problems. I said, What do you mean trying to find problems? I don't have to try and find them. They're in my face. I said it before. I'll say it again. It's like Gordon Gekko said to Bud Fox on Wall Street. Why are you trying to wreck this deal? Because it's wreckable. I mean, it really is.
Exactly.
It's horrible.
It's a mess.
Yeah, it's a total mess.
I work in mortgage lending. And the restrictions for buying a house in this day and age have never been, tighter. And I look at the loans and the amount of money that the Raiders are putting in and how much debt they have to take on, and it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you're talking $3 to $4 million between, building a stadium and building a training facility and infrastructure and cost overruns and all the different things they're going to have to do. And they're putting $100 million into it. That's like somebody coming to me and saying, I want to buy $1 million house. I got a $100 bill.
Yep.
Well, what can I do?
Yep.
It just wouldn't work. You really got to have more skin in the game. And I'm amazed that anybody, including B of A, is willing to even explore this, because I wouldn't even have wasted my time exploring this. Obviously, Sheldon Adelson, who he himself said, I can't even get 2% return on my money. How is anybody else going to do better than that? It says a lot.
Yep.
So I'm amazed. I'm really amazed it's gotten this far, and I think it's only because of the power of the NFL and the Shield itself.
That's it.
And that B of A and any other interested parties know that the NFL will ultimately bail out Mark Davis if it comes to that. But it is the worst deal of the century, and you're killing your fan base. I mean, yeah, the Raider Nation is global, and yeah, they're everywhere, and I don't want to diminish anybody's fandom. I'm not here to tell, people who's the better fan than the other, but I can tell you this: the people in Oakland, there's nothing like an Oakland tailgate. There's nothing like a game day in Oakland when O.co or whatever they're calling it these days is just rocking. I mean, the amount of energy that's in that place is it's better than any other stadium I've been to. I've been to 8 NFL stadiums. I've been to several away games, and I've done the tailgates. I've done the game day experience, and there's nothing like Oakland. And I don't say that just because I'm a Raider fan, but because they literally have the best thing going. I mean, they pack us in like a can of sardines, which is a good thing because you get to know the people on either side of you. Last time I went to San Diego for the Raiders at San Diego, we were so far spread out from the people next to us that all we had was the people in our group. There was no, getting to know anybody else. I've made so many personal connections. I've done business in that parking lot with people that ended up netting me a lot of money
Nice.
because of the connections I make in that parking lot and at that game. And then, once that game starts and the crowd is roaring, and I mean, there's just nothing like it. It's amazing. It's so much energy, and it's literally, like I said, it's the best day of my life every time I go, and it can't be beat.
Hey, I want to take advantage of the fact that you're here as a super fan and talk to you because you've been in the West Side Club. You've seen guys like JT the Brick and come in, and I have a great relationship with JT. I'm sure you do too. But what do you think about how the fan base is being split here and in your conversations with people?
Well, I think the NFL is doing exactly what they like to do. Divide and conquer, right? That's ultimately how big business is done. I personally, I don't know JT. I don't like JT, and I wasn't a fan of JT's prior to the relocation. I always thought that, what he brought was very canned and candy coated, and it really wasn't informative. But I was such a fan of the game that anything he reported, I kind of already knew anyway,
right?
Because I'd get it from Twitter, or I'd get it from SiriusXM NFL Radio, or wherever. So I never found JT's reports to be informative. I always thought he was just kind of towing the company line and reporting on what the Raiders wanted to report on, or what the casual fan might want to hear. But nothing that I found interesting.
It's funny.
I don't listen to his show now. I find it very boring. I don't even listen to 95.7 The Game hardly anymore. I might listen to Damon Bruce every once in a while just because he's somewhat objective. And I think he gets it from a fan perspective, what the NFL is doing. But, yeah, I'm not a big fan of JT's.
Hey, so what do you think of the Coliseum in terms of how it's been refurbished with respect to the east side? I mean, I'm talking about the Oakland Coliseum. What upgrades would you like to see done if we could spend, like, say, $14 million?
Well, you know, I wasn't a big fan of the refurbishment back, you know, to lure them back and ultimately build Mount Davis. You know, sticking the fans with the PSLs and ultimately, you know, having that fail. I would have much rather a new stadium have been built. Obviously, that wasn't a possibility then for a multitude of reasons. But Eastside Club is okay. I prefer the West Side only just because people on the West Side have been there a long time. There's a certain sense of a community and everybody kind of knows each other on that side. But the East Side, it's okay. It's nice. It's got some nicer suites. You know, the suites themselves are nicer because they're newer. So that's always nice. I used to go into Al Locusal suite way back when, and they had a very nice suite, and some of the amenities are very nice. They had a bathroom inside the suite, which was very nice that they don't have on the West Side Club. So that was always nice. You don't have to go and stand in line at the public restroom in the West Side Club. But I had always wished that they would have forgone Mount Davis and the East Side Club and just really built a new stadium, especially now that it's, you know, I never thought the Mount Davis experience was any good. I've been up there a couple times just to try it, and I always had vertigo up there, and I just never felt safe. And then, of course,
I've never been up there. I'm proud to say I've never been up there, man. I was like, oh no.
Well, what I did one year is I had a buddy who had never been to the club, and so I said, look, I have 2 tickets, you have 2 tickets. I will, and he was there with his son. I said, I will swap out and I will switch with you mid-game. I'll come meet you. I will give you my access to the club, and you can go and experience that with your son. And I will take your Mount Davis tickets and watch the rest of the game from up there. Boy, did I regret that. So I didn't really like it up there. It was really too high, too steep in terms of a climb. And there's, you know, fights and nonsense up there that I really didn't want to be a part of. So I will say this, you know, a lot of people, there's a lot of controversy about why Mount Davis was tarped and why it continued to be tarped when there's a waiting list for season tickets. And this is straight from the horse's mouth. I went to training camp last summer, and I was talking with our ticket liaison about it, and he addressed the whole group. There was a room of about 100 of us, and he told the whole group, because we all asked, why is Mount Davis tarped if there's so many people, you know, looking to buy tickets? And he put it very candidly and very point blank. He said, the Raiders are no longer interested in the lower ticket fans. We're only interested in those that are willing to pay to be here. And we figured that 50,000 season tickets with a capacity of up to 60,000 is a lot better of a game day experience with regard to parking, with regard to concessions and, you know, beverages and the wait times to get that kind of stuff, and just traffic getting in and out. It would be a lot easier to manage. And then logistically, the Mount Davis was the return on investment for Mount Davis in terms of ticket sales was not worth it. So the $20 or $25 they'd get per ticket, but they were shelling out so much for attendance and security and police and everybody to monitor what was happening up there that they were ultimately not making any money on having those seats filled.
Yeah, the main problem with, and I pointed this out, I believe it was October 6th of 1997 when I represented Elihu Harris. I'm not sure about that date, but I know the day was a Tuesday morning. It was Community Economic Development Agency meeting, and I put on the agenda our sports teams and financing, not the teams, but the facilities, because I wanted everyone to know that we were essentially underfunded, and the Coliseum was only redesigned to bring the Raiders back, but it wasn't redesigned to state-of-the-art specifications. And I remember Nate Miley, Alameda County Supervisor, will tell you today that I said to him that we're going to have a problem with that stadium. And he said, right then and there, we just spent $200 million to get the Raiders back. I said, yeah, I know we did, but it wasn't state of the art. And so we have a punch list of 140 items that have to do with the stadium that to this day I'm not even sure if they're all done. And that's no criticism of the current JPA executive director who I fought to get hired, Scott McKibben. But it's a simple fact that when we brought back the Raiders, we also did something that a lot of people don't talk about. We went to a private management system of structure. We brought in SMG and then AEG. And SMG's contract was basically a deferred maintenance contract. And that is, they could make money by basically putting maintenance off. And so we've never done a complete maintenance audit to say, okay, here's what we need done, and here's what we have not done. Little things like, for example, replacing the baseboards in the West Side luxury boxes and suites. So if you happen to go along the baseboards, you see the carpet's a little uneven and stuff, you know, put that on Instagram and note that as something that needs to be fixed. Because these are little items that we don't have, and the JPA has not given enough money for the executive director to have a staff to look at where we are in terms of making sure the stadium is tip-top and in shape. And why is that important? Because you don't want the Raiders, which they've already done, or the A's, which they certainly have noticed, or the Warriors, which Joe Lacob pointed out to me a little bit ago. You don't want them at all saying, oh, by the way, you're not state-of-the-art, let alone up to snuff in terms of maintenance, so we have to leave. And yet, Russ, that's a situation that we're in. I remember when Alameda County's president, Scott Haggerty, said to me in 2002, when I was with my friend John Russo, who was Oakland City attorney at the time, we were at the Raider game, preseason, and I walked in, at the behest of then city manager Robert Bobb, I applied for the job of executive director of the Coliseum. I turned in a 25-page application response, including everything from how the website should be redesigned, what it should say, how the website can help us service, the whole 9 yards. Do you know what Scott Haggerty said to me? He said, Zinni, thank you for giving us free advice. In other words, oh yeah, it's meaningless to us. We're not going to pay for it. We may not do it, but thanks anyway. And these were basic issues that I had quite literally lived with because Elihu told me to monitor them. Larry Reed, when the Raiders came back, as a rapport, remember I was talking about Jeremy Aguilo and how he's serving the role of the assistant city manager? Well, he's basically serving the role that, for all practical purposes, as a rapport or an equivalent would have been serving in our Oakland parlance, all right? Anyway, Ezra sat down with me, Chief Louis Cohen, who was then the chief of staff for Oakland Councilmember Ignacio De La Fuente, who was on the JPA, a friend of mine as well, and then, as well, Valerie, who worked for Larry Reed, and Ezra said this to me and us. I'll never forget. He said, look, I want you guys to understand the master lease agreement and all these documents because nobody cares, okay? And to a large extent that exists today. And if we had an infrastructure people in Oakland who cared, a lot of the issues we're dealing with now, we wouldn't be dealing with, and the Raiders would have no standing. Now we've given like an inkling of standing, but they have no standing. We would have no standing. And that's why I'm so funny about this and that's why I look at what's going on in Vegas and I chuckle, because people don't understand what it means to have a competent government bureaucracy. It's lost. It's lost. And that's what I'm talking about. It makes me cry sometimes because people don't care anymore. Just don't care.
I agree with you. One thing I've experienced through this process, I myself, I care tremendously enough to want to get involved and put my name and my reputation out there.
Yep.
But
and your money.
Not a lot of people that are willing to do that.
And your money. And your money.
I like I said, I'm doing this. There's some selfish, motivation here in that I love the Raiders and I want to keep my Raiders until the day I die. Absolutely. But I'm doing this for everybody else too, and I really believe in what we're doing. I mentioned to you, I run 2 businesses in addition to this now nonprofit. If I had the time and didn't believe that this was, we were gonna reach our goal, I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be wasting my time. I've got so many things else to do than put hours a day into this process to make sure that people understand who we are, that the politicians, trust and believe in us, that that Ronnie Lott and the Fortress Investment Group are there, and that Ray Bobbitt and the rest of the coalition stay together, and that we continue to grow and unite from all across the country. If I didn't believe that what we were doing was going to result in what we want, I wouldn't be doing this. And it sucks that we have the bureaucracy that we have to deal with. Politics is never fun, and I've never been a political person. And if you asked me, even 6 months ago, and said, hey, you'd be sitting in a room, full of politicians, in a restaurant in Oakland and discussing how ultimately, you're going to take on the NFL or at least, try and push an agenda, I would have told you were full of it, because I could have never seen myself doing that. But, after that relocation vote, I had enough. And I was like, well, the old cliche, right? If you want a job done right, you got to do it yourself. And I felt like if anybody's going to do it, I got to do it. And even if I have the smallest role or the biggest role, doesn't matter. I'm going to put, I'm going to make sure I'm heard.
Hey,
and that's ultimately what I'm hoping the other 37 people that are watching right now will do, is that they'll take my example, my leadership, and say, you know what, if he can do it, I can do it. Get involved, help out. The more the NFL.
Hey, Russ, it's up to 52 now.
Oh, 52, my bad. So, if we had 52 people come together tomorrow and contribute to this with their time, with their money, with their effort, that would be huge. If we had 5,200 people come together from across this country and help, I'm sure you're going to get a ton of views on this video. I see your stats. If we had that support, the fact that we've already raised, even just a few $1,000s on the GoFundMe is a huge story. Ultimately, when we get to the end of this process and we've raised $20, $30, $40, $50,000 towards that monetary goal, that's a huge story to say the community of Oakland banded together and regular folks contributed, and they raised 20 grand to ultimately, make their voices heard. That's a big story. That's a triumph, in my opinion. We need all the support we can get, and that comes from all levels. The regular Joe, the average fan, people who just want to, fight the machine and are tired of corporations running, all over regular folks and communities and that type of thing, or just philanthropists who like to give their money, their time, their effort to good causes, and believe that this is the best cause. Not only does this set a new precedent in sports business and how cities are leveraged, but ultimately we're going to help rebuild District 6 and 7 through a new development of a new stadium on that Coliseum site, ultimately, that will preserve jobs, create more jobs, create more opportunity, create, better property value, and help the people that live in those districts that rely on the stadium, rely on the events that happen there for their income, for their livelihood. And that's really what this is all about. Yeah, I want to save the Raiders, and yeah, I want to change how business is done ultimately. But when you drive through District 6 and 7, I've been doing it a lot lately because of the business that we've had up there. I see what it's like, and it's a hard neighborhood, and if I can help improve that in any way and help the people there with their livelihood and with help them come up a little bit, that's ultimately what it's about. It's about helping other people.
Absolutely,
and,
absolutely.
The icing on the cake is saving the Raiders and affecting hundreds of thousands of other lives who show up to that stadium every Sunday to watch their games. The parents with their kids and their, the families with their long-lost cousins that they never see each other except on game day. And that's ultimately what's about for me. It's really about that community.
Hey, so what are you going to say to Mark Davis when he shows up at training camp, which I think is not this weekend, but 2 weekends, right? Yeah.
So I know Forever Oakland is going for their, their training camp takeover or whatever they call it. And so they're doing their thing. I plan to go on Saturday, August 5th. And I'm going to go and see what that experience is like. Last year, I had a tremendous experience, probably one of the best days ever. And it started with walking into the Sheraton. Just as I was getting there, 7:30 in the morning, and Derek Carr is walking out, and got to have a one-on-one conversation with Derek Carr, which was just the highlight of the day. It didn't get any. It was an awesome day, but it didn't get any better than that. So, and Derek Carr is a tremendous man. He doesn't always say the right things, but he's a young guy and he's learning that. And he's in a tough position, being where he is as a leader for the team. But I still believe in him, and I still think he's a tremendous guy. I mean, as a Christian and a family man and a father and a husband and a leader for that team, he's got a lot of weight on his shoulders. And I think he's doing, very, very well for a young guy. I don't know that at, his age I would have been able to handle the amount of pressure he's under. So he's a really good guy, and I believe in him, and I believe, he'll ultimately do the right thing for him and his family and for the Raiders. But I don't know. I don't know what Mark Davis is going to do. I don't know what I would say to him if I saw him. I also don't know if he's either the most intelligent man on the planet or the dumbest man on the planet, because he's gotten tremendously lucky along the way. And yet he's also made some really bonehead mistakes along the way. So I don't know. It's hard to read. I've got my theories on some of the things he said. I know Grizz has reported on some of the things he said, even privately in their own conversations. I don't know what to believe. I have a hard time. And I really try not to take that into account, what Mark Davis really means or says, or if he's lying or if he's telling the truth. All I try to do is just work towards my goal of keeping the Oakland Raiders, making sure that we are well prepared, well planned, and that ultimately the powers that be, being the municipalities, being the leaders in the community in Oakland, and the regular citizens all around the Northern California area, not only trust us, but believe in us and support us, because we're doing it for everyone.
I want to add something. First of all, I said it once and I'll say it again. First of all, as a person who's part of the NFL family, I like Mark Davis a lot. And the reason why I say that is, this is how I look at it. If Mark Davis were really a mean person, I couldn't be at the NFL meetings, all right, even with all that. And I have been in situations where, when I was working on the Super Bowl, the Raiders publicly spoke against me in the form of Bruce Allen, who's a friend now, but privately they were always supportive. They actually cast a vote in favor of the Super Bowl effort. So I have a more of a balanced view. And what I've seen, I go back to Jared Bell of USA Today introduced Mark Davis and I. And we hit it off. That was in Boston. We were supposed to have dinner that night, but I had to catch a flight. Otherwise, I would have been stuck, okay? And so we didn't, our wires didn't, and then that was before Bedane with him. Then the next year, that was 2014, we had the NFL Spring League meeting here in Buckhead, and I drove up to meet him, and Bedane, Mark, grabbed me by the shoulder like that. I was going up to introduce myself to Mr. Davis, to Mark, and he grabs me like this, and I looked at Mark, and I said, Mark, you're like my brother. What are you doing that for? And Mark says, oh, yeah, you're right. And so we started all talking, and and Mark said, I need 400, I got 400 million. You got something for me? And we started talking about stadium financing. So my feeling is that overall, Mark Davis is a maverick who, first of all, among other things, perceives himself, for a number of other reasons, we can get a long psychological discussion about that off camera, as profoundly disrespected. And he isn't quite knowing how to handle that. Plus, he's getting older. There's a lot of things maybe he feels like he hasn't done in life, needs to prove himself, okay? And that he's got, and I'm just saying this very bluntly, he's got a giant chip on his shoulder. And so when people criticize him, they sort of activate that chip. And I'm not saying kiss rear or anything like that. No, because look, Grizz is very straight with Mark Davis, and I think Mark Davis respects people who argue with him. It's something where he's like that. Why I don't get that, because the minute it's like really it's wild for me, because like when I was upset with him in not Vegas but in San Francisco at the Spring League meet 2015. That was after that he came to me and said, "You come up with a stadium plan." He did the same thing to Grizz with respect to it's time to talk about the future after the vote went south on us at Phoenix, right? He's got something in him where that pattern comes off. But my point is, you have to credit him for at least structuring the team so that it looks better on the field. The people that you know, like Derek Carr, right? I mean, you can't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And
no doubt,
right,
no doubt.
Right. So we can.
I give him a lot of credit for knowing that what he doesn't know, and with regard to not understanding the football operation side, and hiring Reggie to take care of that.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this: I was a Reggie believer from day one. I never badmouthed him, not once, and I told people all the time, have faith. You know, he's the first-time GM, but he will get there. I believe in, Ron Wolf. And Ron Wolf advocates the hell out of him.
Yep.
So just give him some time, and sure enough, he came out on top. I give Mark a lot of credit for letting go of that, and I also understand that Mark lives in the shadow of his father, where his father was one of the most well-known guys in the sport, and a renegade and an innovator, and understood this game better than most people. So, there's only a couple people on the planet that I would say knew the game as well, if not better, than Al Davis. Maybe guys like Gil Brandt or, something like that. But he's got a lot to have to take on. And the fact that he never was formally groomed to be an owner, and he's kind of stepping into this.
Right.
I give him some of the benefit of the doubt there.
And now here's the thing, though. The Vegas thing is wrong.
I also believe
it still sucks.
The
Vegas thing still sucks. I'm just saying.
Oh, it's still horrible. It's still horrible. And this is just my theory.
Yeah.
I have no factual proof or no real evidence to support it. But just, again, my opinion and my leading theory is that Mark is afraid to screw up, so he's seeking advice from a multitude of people.
Right.
And a few of those people have really sunk their claws into him and have led him to believe that what the advice they offer him is for the betterment of the organization and of the team, and it's really for the betterment of themselves.
Yeah.
And I think that he's just being misled, and that he ultimately thinks that he's going to have the support of these people beyond, going into the future, when I really believe they're just going to take him to a certain point. And then it's up to him to sink or swim, in which case he will likely sink. And they win either way. They either get rid of a owner that they don't really care for or respect, or he makes them a bajillion dollars by making Las Vegas successful.
You sound like
I see the former as being more likely, but it is what it is.
You sound like my friend Charlie Santana Jr., whose dad was instrumental in bringing the Raiders back to Oakland. Charlie Santana Jr. said exactly the same thing. He really did. Hey, how are we doing on time, by the way? Because I know that you've got your schedule.
I got all the time.
Cool.
I'm here for you tonight, Zenny.
Awesome.
I just wanted to kind of set the record straight.
Yeah.
Make sure people understand that We Stand With Oakland is a movement. We're not just, I don't want to say we're the financial arm of Forever Oakland. Forever Oakland is their own group. We've collaborated with Forever Oakland. We've joined with Forever Oakland, but we've also joined with several other fan groups, community groups, businesses, that type of thing. And that ultimately we work with anybody and everybody who wants to contribute. Save Oakland Sports, the Black Hole, individuals here and there from other fan groups that just want to participate individually. I just want people to understand that, yes, We Stand With Oakland retained Jim Quinn and Eric Hochstadt. It's the coalition that ultimately paid for that retention, and that ultimately we are the contracted client for them at this time, and that we are here to preserve Oakland Raider football. Whether it's the organization as it is now or some other form of that, we don't know. We can't predict the future. If I could, I'd go play the lottery, and I'd just go buy the Raiders for Mark Davis. But I'm working as hard on this as if it was my own businesses that I'm running now. I really believe in what we're doing. I really believe in the people that are involved, and I really believe that we're going to make history here, and we're going to change how business is done on a pro sports level, between the organization and the league and the municipalities involved. I don't think what happened to St. Louis was right. I don't think what happened to San Diego was right. And I definitely don't believe what happened to Oakland was right. I think decisions were made well in advance, prior to any votes or any outcomes on all those situations, and that the easy out was taken. The easy out for Mark Davis was, hey, Vegas wants to give me $750 million, I'm in, regardless of what that means in the future, regardless of how much debt they're going to have to incur or how many people that screws over, including himself and his employees. I mean, there's some people at that regular organization that have been there for decades, and they're pissed that they're going to have to either relocate or find another job. And that affects real families in real ways. I mean, people, that's all they've done their whole lives is work for the Raiders, and it's either move to Vegas or get a new job. I'll tell you what, I would want to move to Vegas. Nothing against that city. I visit it 3 or 4 times a year, and I have a good time there, but I wouldn't want to live there. I mean, it's just not my kind of city. So I could see why people wouldn't want to leave the Bay Area. It's, tremendous opportunity here, tremendous, property value, and lots of different types of people, and it's people come here and live here and sustain themselves here. Vegas is largely transient. It's tourists in and out all the time. I don't want. One of the really things I love about Sunday game day is that when you look at that crowd, it may be sparse fans from the other team here or there, but for the most part, it's a sea of black and silver. And I don't want to even look at a Vegas game. I can tell you right now, I will never, ever, ever spend $1 on a Vegas Raiders game. And I probably wouldn't even watch on TV either. But I would hate to see a 50-50 split or something like that, where it's a bunch of cheeseheads and on one side and a bunch of Raider fans on the other, and or even that this becomes Levi's Part 2. Mm-hmm. I've been to a dozen Niner games just for giggles, and what that place has become, it's like a cemetery. I mean, it is horrible. I feel like I'm at a funeral when I'm at a Niners game. It's boring. There's nobody really cares what's happening on the field. You look out across the seats, and it's just a bunch of corporate executives playing on their phones, answering email, doing whatever. Don't even care about what's happening on the field.
And let's not forget the first game out, someone died in the stands. Remember that?
Nope. Yeah, and it's so incredibly hot. And not that we would have the heat experience or anything like that in Vegas. Who knows? But it's just not a good game day experience. The ingress and egress and the parking situation is horrible. And from what I've read and what I've heard, they're trying to replicate that in Las Vegas with, parking garages, perhaps, is one of the alternative plans. And the way it is in Santa Clara is they've got this tiny little lot where a couple hundred people can tailgate, and then the rest is all parking garages. And it's like, that's a crappy game day experience. And then trying to get it in and out of there, I've done it all ways. I've done it by driving myself. I've done it by taking Uber. I've done it by taking light rail, and I've done it by taking the bus. Like I tried all different ways. I said, if there's an easy way to get in and out of there, I want to figure it out. And every time it was just a mess. And I don't see that. I see that being almost identical in Las Vegas. It's so impossible already to get around that city. Cab fare just from one end of the strip to the other end is like $40 or $50 just because of all the traffic. How expensive is it going to be just to go, for a game day experience? And that brings me to another point. I went to the Raiders draft party because I'm a season ticket holder. Mm-hmm. And I wanted, at first I wasn't going to go, but I decided to go because I wanted to talk to other people there and get a feel for how they feel about relocation. So I walked around to about 30 different people at the draft party, and I said, made conversation, and I asked them, I said, how do you feel? Are you pro Oakland or pro Vegas? How do you feel? And it was about a 50-50 split of the 30 people I talked to. They all said, of those, that 50-50 people, they said either I'm not going or I'll go. of the people that said they would go, I said, okay, have you done the math about how much this will potentially cost you to go?
Mm-hmm.
And they said no. And I said, okay, let's do an exercise. And I walked them through it because I'm a numbers guy. I deal in numbers. And I walked them through it. I said, okay, how much is Southwest airfare? Okay, a couple of $100 each way on average. Okay, how much is your hotel per night? Okay, another couple of $100 per night. Okay, now we're talking about ticket cost. Maybe even having to pay for the PSL cost to recoup for that ticket seller on the secondary market to recoup their PSL fee. Then you're talking about food and drinks. And food and drinks in Las Vegas is already exorbitant. Now you're talking about a professional sports stadium. It's going to be insane. So not only are you paying crazy prices on the strip while you're staying there, but then when you get into the game, you're paying double that cost. And you're buying a $20 beer and a $30 hot dog. It's ridiculous. So we did the math just loosely, just to get an idea of what that ultimately would cost. And everybody was shocked. And they're like, wow, I've never really thought about that. And I said, now, if it's you and your wife, that's double that. Now, if it's you and your wife and your 2 kids, quadruple that. You got 6, 7, 8 grand to go to a Raider game every week. That's what's going to cost you ultimately. Mm-hmm. And they're like, wow, well, maybe I'll only go to 1 game. Well, a 1 game does not support a football franchise. And ultimately, I really believe that once people see these costs, one of the things in the meeting today, Mark Bedane, bragged, boasted about having 50,000 deposits for $100 on PSLs, and I did your chuckle.
Yeah, it's not enough
because I fully expect more than half of those people to drop off. We saw it when they came back to Oakland, and those PSLs, everybody put in their deposits, and when it came time to pay the bill, they didn't want to pay the bill.
Yeah, something else. I'm going to add something too. Hey, Russ, I want to add something to that real quick. 50, from my experience, 50% on, and thank you all for your contributions, by the way. 50% investments, 50% of the PSL deposits, they're going to fall off. So you're looking at 25,000. And so for him to say that, I just thought, oh no, what a mistake. Because I go back to when the Raiders came back and our PSL problem, and we thought we had it in the bag. We needed 83.5% to clear. We only got 56.5%. And Bedane's got a $100 deposit. He says from around the world. Well, yeah, but that means that if a person's in Italy, they have less a connection. They've probably figured out, I'm not going to pay this. That happens because they're not local. You know what I'm talking about? So it's a big problem.
Absolutely.
He just,
yeah,
I wouldn't have announced that number if I were him. But that's, he's new at that game. So there you go.
They're looking for any positivity they can get because there isn't much, and that's the only positive point that they can push out is, hey, we have 50,000 people on deposit. But to me, that's meaningless. I don't see. Honestly, the way Vegas works, I can't think of one business in Vegas, hotel, entertainment, any type of anything in that industry on the Strip that lasts more than a couple of years. Everything's hot when it first comes out, and then it slowly fades. And I honestly see that for Raiders, and especially once the Raiders take the downturn, and the way this league works. I mean, look at the Niners, right? Mm-hmm. They were the top of the league 5-7 years ago. They were, NFC champions and Super Bowl contenders and all that stuff. And then it just dropped out and their window closed. And I believe that's the way it works for all the teams in this league.
Yep.
So right now the Raiders are hot and they're Super Bowl favorites and, beast mode and Derek Carr and Khalil Mack. Everything's real positive. Great. But when things change and you can't keep those players past the next couple of years, whatever it's going to be, and the team takes a downturn and nobody wants to buy those tickets anymore, who's going to pay that bill?
That's a great question.
And the only way I see it is the citizens of Nevada got to pay that bill. And it's coming out of that general fund. And Mark Davis is going to shrug his shoulders and say, sorry, that's the way it goes. Not my problem. And I don't want to see that happen. I can't believe we're even here at this point, but I can't think that if they're counting on 30 years of ideal circumstances with sellouts every game and a perfect economy, and people going back and forth to Vegas all the time, that's not realistic. It's not going to happen. Either the team itself is going to take a downturn in time in the next, however many years it takes, or the economy is going to take a downturn. I mean, everything is cyclical. Everything is cyclical.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens when the economy takes a downturn and people can't go on vacations anymore? The first place that suffers is Vegas. And then now we're seeing these casinos fail left and right with bankruptcies and closures and different things because this new generation of millennials, as we call them, doesn't like casino games.
Right.
They may go to the club or they may go do the shows or whatever else, but they're not gambling at the casinos.
Esports.
So how again are they going to continue to sustain that?
Right. Esports. Watch out for esports. That's the next big thing.
And that's the other thing.
Yeah.
I mean, Robert Kraft with DraftKings and doing backdoor deals with Sandoval to get the Raiders in Oakland so that they'll legalize fantasy sports, however that's going to come together. I mean, to me, that's just dirty, and there's just, I mean, you're just screwing a lot of people, mortgaging the state's future for a billionaire that is 2,000 miles away. I mean,
hey Russ, let's close out at
business.
Let's close out at 10:40 because it's 1:31.
You got it.
Yeah, so we'll close out at 1:40 my time, which is about 8 minutes or less. 10:40 your time.
Sure.
And
you want to take a few minutes just to answer questions and get last-minute questions in?
Yeah, there haven't been a lot. People have been asking, Henry Flores. Hey,
well,
Henry.
I've been really trying to give a lot of detail here.
No, you've been doing a fantastic job.
Too much away.
Yeah, no, you've been great. You've been a yeoman here. And Henry Flores says, "What's the life of a casino? 5 years? I don't know." But I want to ask you what you think of, and we haven't talked about this. How is it going with the politicians in Oakland? Because I had Oakland Political Roundtable earlier this morning. We've been talking Oakland politics, but I wanted to know your thoughts about that going. And do you want to see people pack the JPA meeting, on next Friday?
I haven't clarified that yet. I haven't spoken with Ray Bobbitt today yet about that, and how ultimately that's going to play out with the JPA meeting, whether, we want the public there or whether it's better off that we just keep things somewhat quiet until the vote is made. So we're working to clarify that, and we'll project that message out as soon as we know. But in terms of the politicians themselves, we've had great support, shocking support from the politicians. Initially, we met with members of the city, and they almost gave us a blueprint on how to even move forward with this. Guys like Noel Gallo has been fantastic, from the city perspective.
District 5 council member
guys
of Oakland.
like,
yeah.
What's that?
District 5 council member of Oakland, yeah.
Yes, exactly. He's been awesome, and he's been, behind us 100%, and he's given us a lot of tips and techniques and strategy on the political side of how the city works, and ultimately how we can, ultimately achieve that goal. And then guys like Nate Miley and has been, absolutely fundamental and so amazing with regards to the support that he's given us. There are multiple other, supervisors and city council members that, stand with us and stand, support us. But those two, only because they were initially the first guys to kind of support us and lend us insight. Those are the first two guys that come to mind. But, McKibben from the JPA has been really, really, really informative. And he's, he gets his fair share of criticism for decisions he's made through the years with regards to the JPA and the Oakland Coliseum site. But my experience is he is extremely knowledgeable.
Actually, Scott, Scott just got there. He was hired in 2014.
What's that?
Scott just got there. He was hired in 2014.
I know.
Yeah.
So I've heard his criticisms, being a part of this from, citizens and people that are just out there, just like, hey, watch out for this, watch out for that. But my experience with Scott McKibben is he's extremely informative and he's very passionate. I was really surprised at the level of passion that he carries with regards to the negotiations and how this is all carried out. So I really respect him a lot. and then let's see, Chris Gibbons, and De La Fuente, who you mentioned earlier.
You mean Chris Dobbins? You mean Chris Dobbins? You mean Chris Dobbins?
Chris Dobbins, excuse me. And I was thinking McKibben, and I combined the two.
Keep that in mind.
And Hall, and just a few of these guys come to mind, and ladies, of course, come to mind. They've been extremely, extremely supportive. So we are very, very confident in where we stand today, that ultimately, politically, we are going to achieve our goal politically. And then it just becomes about a monetary goal and ultimately the goal of keeping the Oakland Raiders in Oakland. So, I know we only got a couple minutes left, so I really want to implore anybody out there listening, watching, anybody who's not watching live is going to watch later, reach out, get in touch, visit the GoFundMe page, contribute if you can. If you have smaller donations, use the GoFundMe. If you want to get a sizable tax deduction, write us a check, and you can contact me directly, and I'll tell you where to send it. GoFundMe.com/We Stand With Oakland. Facebook page is We Stand With Oak, and on Twitter, again, We Stand With Oakland. I'm at Russell Rivera, and I just want to ask anybody and everybody, get involved, believe, because I'm doing it for you, and I'm doing it for everybody out there, and our whole coalition is working together, and we're really strong. We've got some really good people that are not out in the public that are working with us and ultimately helping us achieve this. So get behind this thing, believe in it, support it. We will make a difference, and we will change how things are done.
Hey, man, it's been great having you on. A lot of fun, and we're going to do it again.
Thanks a lot, Tony. I appreciate it, buddy.
You got it, man. Definitely. And everybody, I'm going to have a show tomorrow far earlier than usual, more like in the 5 o'clock hour in the East. And so, because normally I don't do a Friday show, but I want to get out of the way discussing.
One more thing I want to say, because I'm so sick of people assuming that they know something about this that they don't know.
Thank you.
I'm asking for support, and yes, money is a great thing, but hey, we're going to achieve our goal with or without your money. So if you want to be a part of this, you can contribute through money, through time. But believe me, I live in Silicon Valley. We live in the Bay Area. We are the epicenter of crowdfunding. We are the epicenter of venture capitalists and fundraising. And people here make a ton of money, and they're willing to contribute to good causes. So whether the average Joe contributes or not, that's not going to stop me. The GoFundMe page is a very small piece of the puzzle when it comes to the fundraising aspect of this thing. We are working with some very large and powerful companies, very large and powerful individuals that we believe are going to ultimately help us reach our goal with or without the small fundraiser. I just want the community to be involved. I want somebody to be able to tell their friends, their family, their coworkers, when this is all played out and done, I contributed to that cause and I helped make a difference. And that's what that's about.
And that, folks, will be the last word. Russ, thanks a lot, man. That's a great
Thanks a lot, Tenny. Take care, buddy.
Okay, good night, everybody. I'll see you.